I'm Kiyan.
And this is Trust Your Doctor, that podcast where we name drop another podcast.
Because this week we watched The Colony in Space, which was...
Written by Malcolm Hulke, and aired in April and May of 1971.
And was directed by Michael Bryant, who I think is a new name to the show. I don't recall...
He was... I think the wiki mentioned that he was, special effects supervisor for Fury in the Deep, 3 years before.
Something like that. Right, so, continuing on with Season 8 and the Master's overarching plot line, we have a kind of an interesting serial here. It doesn't really follow what you'd come to expect from a Third Doctor serial.
Yeah, it breaks form, mainly because the Third Doctor just nopes off Earth.
Well, they do explain it right at the beginning. You see a scene on as yet unnamed Gallifrey with the Time Lords. And that's your first indication that things are going to be a little different.
Yeah.
I think they mention that the Master... They mention the Master is up to something nefarious with some sort of doomsday weapon.
Yeah.
And then I guess they just don't want to deal with it themselves. So they decide to lift the Doctor's exile
for
half a second to the brig. But we'll get there. I guess they want the Doctor to deal with it. Wow, guys.
Yeah, so anyway, the Doctor, for the first time, lets Jo into the TARDIS, and she's like, whoa, it's bigger on the inside, of what all the companions do when they get in there.
Yeah.
And then the Doctor goes in and is like, And then the doors close and it starts taking off, and Jo's like, Doctor, let me out. Doctor, what's happening? Doctor.
So it dematerializes. And the brig is there in the room, too. And we only see the brig for the first and last minute of this serial.
Yeah, well, he's just like, oh yeah, there's a report on someone who could be the Master, Doctor. I'm just gonna go check that out. And then he comes back and he's like, hey, Doctor. And then he sees the TARDIS dematerialize. He's like, come back, Doctor. And then we don't see him till the end of the serial.
Yep. But yeah, the TARDIS is dematerializing. The Doctor mentions that, they can't let themselves out because they haven't materialized yet, so that would be dangerous, as we've seen / has been hinted at in previous serials.
Planet of the Giants.
But yeah, they materialize on some unknown world. And for the first time, Jo leaves Earth. I think so far the only companions who haven't left Earth are the unit people, the Brig, Yates, Benton, and Liz.
Yeah, think so.
Yeah, pretty sure that's all-inclusive there. But Jo is like, good one, Doctor. Let's go back now. And the Doctor's like, no, we're actually on another world.
Yeah, Jo reveals that she never really believed the Doctor when he said it was a time and space machine. And he's like, well, do you believe now?
Which it's understandable. That's all the companions don't believe it until they experience it, and then right away they're super quick to just accept everything, Jo is.
Well, she does spend basically the whole first episode trying to get the Doctor to leave, and at some point the Doctor's like, "Okay, yeah, Jo, let's go home," because they see all the geodesic dome bases, and Jo's like, "This is pretty sketch, Doctor. Can we go back to the TARDIS?" He's like, "Yep, sure, let's go." And so for once, the Doctor's actually just walking away until they get cornered by some people with guns.
So they're taken to the domes they saw earlier, which turns out to be a colony set up by humans on this planet, because apparently the Earth is too populated and polluted.
Euaxrius.
Yeah, it was called, I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce that, but that wasn't... I think that was only mentioned one time in the first episode and then never mentioned again. I'm pretty sure they just called it the planet, and I'm pretty sure they just called the inhabitants, spoiler, they're aliens on this planet, the primitives. They didn't call them...
Well, it's not really a spoiler because this is about the time we first see the primitives because they make off with the TARDIS.
Yeah. But yeah, interesting that they would introduce that name and then not really use it.
Yeah. Oh well.
Don't exactly know why that would be the case, unless they just
Oh,
decided
well.
to throw it in last minute. If they were filming episode 1 last or something.
They threw it in the first script revision, I think I was reading.
Huh. All right.
Meh. I don't know.
But yeah, I mean, no mention of no indication that the Master is going to show up so far. He was mentioned.
Yeah, they
But,
name drop him. And they're like, okay. So you meet Ash, the leader of the colonists, who isn't initially trustworthy of the Doctor, but the Doctor reveals that he knows that their crops are failing because he somehow just read their crop yield chart.
Yeah.
And he's like, so, do you know something about farming? He's like, yeah, I might. I'm a scientist of everything, or whatever he says.
Yeah, and we get the picture that through Ash's dialogue / argument with some other colonists that there's not really harmony within this colony, and
Yeah.
I guess there's one faction. Ash and his faction want to stay on the planet and attempt to revitalize their crops, but the other faction wants to take their ship and leave and try and create a colony on another planet, which would be a bad idea since their ship is pretty much broken.
Right.
Which becomes a major thing later.
So, yeah, that's basically all that happens in episode 1.
The primitives show up. Those are the inhabitants of the planet, the original inhabitants of the planet, and they're like they're green. They look almost like the Silurians, but their costumes look slightly less good. Because I mean, it just looks like they're wearing a green jumpsuit with random streaks of paint.
The wiki mentions this serial was notable for its super low budget special effects because just for some reason they didn't have as big a budget on this serial.
Yeah, I mean it's noticeable. We've got the generic control room, random sand fields that serve as a major location for a lot of this serial.
It is a desolate planet with a lot of duralinium, apparently. But yes, the colonists have mentioned briefly that a lot of other colonies have been usurped by this IMC mining corporation, who just comes to a planet and is like, lol, we didn't know there were colonists here. Let's get an adjudicator. And the adjudicator nearly always rules in favor of the mining corporation because money.
Yeah. What was the acronym? What did it stand for? Interplanetary Mining Corporation or something like that?
Yeah, you got it right.
Their logo reminded their logo was like IMC stylized in sort of a circle. It reminded me of some other logo I've seen, but I don't remember what.
Yeah, I know it. I have the same feeling.
But yeah, they're there on this planet.
Yeah, they show up in episode 2.
Do they? Well, I mean, when you say they show up in episode 2, and
well, because okay, so at the end of episode 1 ends. So these two guys in one of the domes die, right? They get killed by this monster, and everyone thinks there's a monster going around with big claws.
Yeah, it looks like some sort of giant reptile.
And the Doctor was investigating the dome when the monster, quote unquote, which is actually just a robot, shows up, and he's like, "Oh no!" And then when episode 2 starts, the mining guy shows up to control the robot, and that's the first time you see the mining corporation on the planet.
I mean, they were there, like they were stationed. It's not like they show up on the planet in episode 2. They were already established there.
Yeah, but they first encounter the Doctor and anyone on the planet in episode 2.
Right. So yeah, I guess this is one of just a long string of reports of these monsters attacking. And the colonists have been on this planet for a while, and they haven't encountered these monsters until recently, which is pretty suspicious. And I think that's mentioned by Joe is talking with some other colonists in like the mess hall or whatever, and that sort of serves to expositionize, it's not a word, but the fact that the colonists don't really have much food, they're not really eating too well. And yeah.
Also, another random colonist shows up in the colony named Norton, who says he was in another colony on the planet that got attacked by the primitives, and he serves, I guess, to bolster the uprising, I guess.
The eventual uprising. Spoiler, that's happening. But yeah, this portion, or these scenes kind of started a big complaint I had with this serial, one of a few, that Joe really didn't do much at all other than serve to get kidnapped and, generally ruin plans. I mean, she's ruined plans before, but it was kind of in like a funny way, and she was an integral part of those serials, so it was almost like a comic relief moment.
Yeah.
But here, she kind of falls into the Barbara Susan position where she doesn't exactly do much other than serve as a catalyst for like more important characters to go to a certain location or whatever, which kind of sucks.
Well, I mean, let's be fair. Most of the companions didn't do anything the first time they left Earth. Because they were too busy going, whoa, we're not on Earth.
I guess. I mean, but it's been a trend in this serial and the last that Joe has sort of fallen into this role where she doesn't do much, so I just hope that they don't continue with that.
Well, she's not a scientist, so...
Yes, in case you didn't already know, in case we hadn't mentioned it enough, Joe is not a scientist.
So, the IMC man, I forgot his name, but...
Was this Morgan?
Yeah, okay, yeah, that was... Yeah, he takes the doctor back to the spaceship to talk with the leader.
Dent?
Yeah. Jeez, their names are so forgettable.
Did you notice that all the IMC guys, I think I noticed it here when they go into their ship and you see a bunch of all their other personnel, they all had this weird haircut where like they combed the front of their hair into like some sort of point on their...
No, I didn't, what?
Go back and like either just watch some clips of the episode or just look up some images of them because like they all had the same haircut. And it looked really weird because, well, okay, they all attempted to have the IMC guys have the same haircut, but it didn't exactly work, which is why it looked weird. I mean, just because different people, have. But yeah, it was slightly strange.
Huh.
But yeah, Dent is kind of a jerk.
Yeah, well, that's an understatement, but... Any harsher words would require like a PG-13 rating on this episode, so... Anyway, so he meets with the doctor. The doctor has used this entertainment console in the room they're keeping him in to catch up on the history of Earth up to that point, I guess. And
right. It's mentioned in passing earlier with the colonists that they're in the year 2472.
Yeah. And the population of Earth is like 100 billion people now. And there's overpopulation issues, which is why they're starting all these colonies. So, like exposition. More exposition. But eventually Dent shows up and talks to the doctor. And at first he assumes the doctor's a colonist, but then the doctor reveals he's not a colonist. He's just kind of a traveler. And they're like, oh. So Dent is like, all right, Morgan, just take him back to that dome and kill him, and then the colonists will find him, and they'll be too scared of the monster, and they'll leave. So that's how episode 2 ends, is with the doctor in the dome being attacked, quote-unquote, by Morgan and the robot machine monster thing. With really non-menacing, like, papier-mâché claws. But...
It's true. But yeah, episode 3 starts, I believe, with the doctor once again utilizing Venusian Aikido. It's back to Aikido. It's not karate anymore.
I think that's his trademark at this point.
Well, they do call it karate in one serial. Inferno, I believe it was. They accidentally called it karate. But yeah, he knocks out Morgan, escapes.
Back to the colony.
Right. And, then he deduces that, well, he doesn't deduce, he notifies them that the monsters were just robots.
And no one really believes him, but
Not understandably, I probably wouldn't.
yeah, I think this is the part where Norton is talking with this guy Jim, who's fixing the main power supply, and he has a primitive who helps him out and hands him tools and stuff. We should mention the primitives. We said they were mute, but they're actually telepathic, which is why they understand the humans. So
Yeah, we also get the picture painted through dialogue that the primitives and humans, they're not exactly allies, but they just tolerate each other, basically.
pretty
The
much.
primitives sometimes demand food tributes or whatever. Because apparently their food supply is failing as well.
Right.
Interesting.
Suspicious. But anyway, Norton is like, no, the primitives are evil. You shouldn't trust them. And Jim's like, nah, it's fine. And then Norton's like, okay. Then he kills Norton and the primitives, and makes it look like the primitive did it. And then he destroys the power supply and is like, Ash, yo, I saw the primitive attack Norton, so I took out the primitive. And Ash is like, uh-huh. Well, now we're doomed because no one can fix that power supply. Luckily, the doctor's just shown up. He's like, oh, the power supply's broken? I can fix that. So he does.
When do we get the Jim will fix it mention?
Probably around now when
Yeah.
they're talking to Ash, or Ash's daughter. What was her name?
Mary.
Mary. And she
Think.
was like, Jim will fix it.
Pretty
Yeah.
sure it was Mary. But whatever, she's not that important of a character, to be honest.
Yeah, well, she named jobs that show that won't actually premiere for another 3 or 4 years.
Right, Jim will fix it is a BBC series that premieres in 75, I think.
Yeah,
it was.
75.
That they just happen to, I guess, name drop here.
Right. So Joe and Winton decide to go investigate the IMC ship because, like, the IMC, it's pretty sketch.
Winton, I think we didn't mention before, was part of the faction that wants to leave the planet.
Mm-hmm.
So, he's sort of in a power struggle with Ash.
Right.
He seems to be the quote-unquote second in command,
The
possibly.
militaristic anti-Ash.
He's the
view.
upstart Silurian of this serial.
But anyway, well, he does exactly what the upstart Silurian does and makes everything worse. But anyway, Joe and Winton go to investigate the IMC spaceship and get captured, predictably, because Norton warns them that they're coming. And so now Norton is in league with the IMC guys. Plot twist.
Right, so Joe and Winton get strapped to a bomb.
Yeah.
And Dent, I think, notifies the colonists, like, hey, you guys tried to sneak into our facility, so now they're strapped to a bomb. And you guys better not try anything funny or we'll detonate it. So the colonists, understandably and predictably, want to go find this bomb so that they can rescue Winton and Joe. But the doctor says that's a bad idea because IMC will probably be watching them, and if they find that they're trying to locate the bomb, they'll just blow it up.
Right.
Which will actually serve the purpose of locating it. I mean, they'll be dead, but they'll know where it is.
Wow. That's dark. But no, the doctor meets with this guy named Caldwell, who is against all the killing. The
Right, he's with
only
IMC.
level-headed IMC employee here.
Yeah, I mean, he's sort of, what's the word? Antagonized by Dent constantly because he's not okay with all the death.
Yeah, pretty much. But he's like, yeah, so let's not do that. And he meets with the doctor and he tells the doctor that they're in a cave somewhere. And he's like, okay, thanks. But the primitives attack the cave and make off with Joe.
Right. Meanwhile, Winton also makes his escape. There's some grease on the bomb, so that's how they get there. That's how they they rub the grease on their.
Yeah, because Winton escapes, then Joe gets captured by the guard who they had knocked out but gets back up and captures Joe when Winton leaves, and then the primitives attack and take Joe.
Yep. So Winton is on the run through this desert-like landscape. This scene was probably another instance of filler content where he runs away and then runs back the way he came. Or, well, I guess it's the pursuers who do that. Because IMC sends these two guys in a truck. Winton's on foot, and it's a long, drawn-out scene where they're chasing each other. But then Winton stumbles across some sort of IMC supply base, which is, I guess, built into some sort of rock face.
Yeah, where Caldwell's hanging out.
Yeah.
And that's Caldwell's like, yeah, I killed him. It's all good.
Yeah, he pretends to shoot him. So the other IMC guys, I guess, just are lazy and take it for granted, and they're like, okay, good job.
Hit him and leave. and then Winton goes back to the colony and reveals to the doctor that Joe was still there. And then by the time the doctor makes it to the cave, the primitives already taken Joe. And he's like, oh boy. And he finds out that he talks to Ash, and Ash is like, oh, they probably took her to the primitive city.
Which is it's their underground facility. Their city.
Their city.
So the doctor goes there, and he's
captured.
I wouldn't say captured, but yeah, I guess he's captured. The primitives show up, and they sort of escort him into the city at Spear Point. So yeah, they go down into the underground city, and I was wondering, if it's indeed true that this serial had a lower budget than most, this would make sense, but this looked like just a retooled version of the Silurian underground base thing. I'm pretty sure it was.
Probably, yeah.
And there were a few extra, decorations here and there.
Bells and whistles, so to speak.
Just to differentiate it, but I don't know, I'm kind of okay with that. I liked the look of the Silurian base. Looked like a creepy ancient cave, which makes sense in this context too, yeah. So the doctor's looking around. He reunites with Joe, and they're sort of looking around this particular room, which has technology more advanced than you'd think at first glance that the primitives would have.
Right.
And there's, I guess, a mural on some sort of... I didn't know if that was supposed to be some sort of control panel or if it was just a mural. Because it looked kind of futuristic, but anyway, there are these drawings that depict people who look like the primitives using technology that they don't have anymore.
Yeah.
So the doctor deduces, like, hey, maybe they've regressed in their technology.
Yeah. I think the doctor calls it a relief later when he's talking it to the master.
Yeah. Isn't a relief just a mural?
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
But yeah, they're escorted to the high leader of the primitives, and we see another type or subspecies of the primitives. Again, comparing them to the Silurians. But yeah, this one, this looks completely different. This other species, it sort of wears I guess it was supposed to be a beige robe, but maybe that was part of its body. And its head is just a brain. Its head is a brain. Yeah, I was wondering if that was its brain just exposed to the elements, but yeah. Looks completely different from the other how the other primitives look. And then they meet another subspecies or another type of primitive, I guess, which looks like the brain-headed ones, but is smaller, and well, its head is the same size, but its body is like, it looks like that of a baby.
Yeah, he's just chilling in a chair in the main control room.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, you guys have come here, so we're gonna kill you. And the doctor's like, wait, you brought us here, what?
Yeah, it's the only one that can talk, this baby-looking one.
Yeah, and he's like, well, sacrifice. The doctor's like, but you brought us here, we didn't intrude on you or anything. He somehow words his way into getting free. I think he's like, don't you believe in justice? We're just innocent people. I only came here to get her back.
Right. So yeah, he somehow talks his way out of the situation and allows the primitives allow them to leave. But as they were leaving, and this is kind of something I would expect from the Third Doctor, and something I don't like about him, because as they were leaving, he makes some sort of sarcastic remark about injustice or something, and I'm like, come on, Doctor, they just let you off from getting killed. Don't you think that would kind of piss them off to make this sort of comment as you leave their city?
Well, they're telepathic, so
I guess they would know anyway, but
yeah, they would have seen
still.
it coming. So
Still.
plus, his comment wasn't that sarcastic. It was like, "I'm glad to see justice prevails over injustice."
Yeah, but he says it in such a way that implies...
You were half asleep. I don't trust you.
Yeah, I'm just gonna reveal right now that I was half asleep during most of these episodes. Kind of like I was somewhat last week, which I should be trying to get better at. But then again, these episodes were pretty generic. I mean, yeah, I'm kind of glad... Maybe we'll talk about this now, since we brought it up already. But yeah, surprisingly enough, for the first time in a while that they leave Earth, I didn't find this serial too enjoyable.
It was just boring and drawn out.
Yeah. Anyway.
Maybe he does make a sarcastic comment. Maybe I was half asleep. I didn't find it that sarcastic.
I don't know. If I was in this position, I would kind of just take what's been given me and take the opportunity to escape instead of trying to antagonize them. But whatever. They do. They make it out alive.
And the adjudicator shows up.
Right. They did we mention the adjudicator yet? I don't think we did.
We mentioned that the adjudicators usually side with the IMC because money.
Oh, right.
But
yeah,
anyway.
so they call him the adjudicator. I guess they'd called him earlier, but yeah, he shows up, and it's
the monster.
I didn't see this coming. In retrospect, I should have, but because they were name dropping the adjudicator, and they also he showed up and they didn't show his face for a while, and so you saw it coming, obviously, and and he did you notice his outfit?
Yeah,
had these shoulder pads and this collar that like goes above his head.
Yeah.
It looked like something out of the new trilogy for Star Wars, or like possibly Dune. I haven't seen Dune, but I've seen, I guess, clips of it, and I guess this is what...
Yeah, I haven't seen Dune either.
I've read the book.
Yeah, well, the book was good. But I've heard the movie was like, eh.
Yeah, there's a mini-series, but it doesn't look like sort of a precursor to something one of the royal bodyguards would wear in the Star Wars new trilogy.
Yeah.
Or like Padme or something.
Yeah, actually, yeah.
Yeah, but...
No, it reminded me of the Time Lord robes, which you haven't seen yet, but I've seen pictures of, that the Time Lords end up wearing like in the Fourth Doctor's run, which is going to be great. So those robes are so over the top. But anyway.
Yeah, presumably this is the adjudicator outfit. But yeah,
he takes off after the trial thing immediately and then never wears for the rest of the serial.
Makes sense. Maybe it's sort of official attire for adjudicating. Like how a judge would wear a robe during a trial or something.
Yeah, I guess.
A cloak or whatever it's called.
So anyway, he's adjudicating for the case between the IMC guys and the colonists, which is when the Doctor walks in and the Master and the Doctor make eye contact, and the Master's like, I'm going to need a recess to come up with my decision. Then the Doctor and the Master go into the other room to talk, and the Doctor's like, what are you doing here, Master?
And he's like, well, I have my credentials as an official adjudicator. Why are you here, Doctor? Do you have any credentials? We should also mention, if this wasn't already obvious, maybe it wasn't, that what he's adjudicating on is the colonists want IMC to leave, and IMC wants the colonists to leave.
Right.
That's I think that would be obvious, but in case it wasn't, that's what it is.
Yeah.
So yeah, the doctor's like, well, no, I don't have any papers.
I'm just here because, yeah. The most like, I see the Time Lords lifted your exile, He's like, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, the Doctor and Joe don't really know what's going on because, or at least the Doctor, I guess Joe's not really in on any of this, but I guess if I was the Doctor, I'd be pretty confused as to what's going on. Like, is my exile lifted? What's happening?
I think he mentioned at the beginning that him coming here had something to do with the Time Lords, but I don't think he knows if his exile is lifted, permanently or what.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't control the TARDIS, so
yeah,
that's would be a
Time Lords messing with his TARDIS. But anyway, so the monster goes back and he's like, "Yeah, I rule in favor of IMC," and
unsurprisingly.
And Ash is obviously upset at this and tries to convince the monster otherwise. We're just going to call him the monster. But he's like, well, the only grounds for appeals would be like if there was some historical interest to this planet. And Ash like, well, there was the primitive city. And the monster's like, really now? And during this time, Winton is like, yeah, we should just kill all the IMC guys and that would be great.
Yeah, Winton wants to militarize the colony. Ash obviously is against it. But, based on what happens later, Winton is kind of correct. I mean,
at the same time, he still makes things worse.
Yeah, I mean, either way, he would have made things worse.
Yeah.
So in his position, wouldn't it be better to kill off some of the IMC guys in the process?
Wow. Wow.
I mean, speaking solely from his point of view, of course.
Right. Right. So the Doctor and Joe are like, well, now what? And the Doc's like, well, I have the monster's TARDIS key that I stole way back in, Terror of the Autons, so let's go investigate his TARDIS.
So, yeah, they head on over to his TARDIS, which has been disguised as the Adjudicator ship.
Which landed in the most inefficient way possible, I just want to add.
I don't even remember that landing sequence.
Well, it comes in horizontally, and it's got wheels, so it can land horizontally, but then it turns vertically and lands vertically. It's like, what?
Hey, it's like modern jets. They land vertically. No, they don't.
Not all of them.
No, I don't think any of them do.
There's one.
There's one that lands vertically? And
it can. Well, it didn't work very well. It was just a prototype.
Yeah, that's what I thought. But yeah, they head on over to the Master's TARDIS. They open the door and they find that there's some sort of trip sensor beam thing.
Yeah.
The Doctor, this is really funny. The Doctor mentions, they notice it. They don't set it off, they notice it. And the Doctor mentions that it's 1 foot off the ground, so they're going to need to get by it somehow. So they decide, instead of stepping over it, to crawl under it. And he explicitly states that it's 1 foot off the ground. Yet they still crawl under it.
Yeah, well, that scene was just enjoyable, so...
At least it made for a comedic sequence.
Anyway, at some point here, IMC has tried to take over the colony, and Winton predictably is not too happy with that, and there's a firefight where some people die, and Norton dies in the first one. Also, there's a colonist that dies in the most pathetic way possible, like just putting his gun down and falling over.
He's like, I'm not getting paid enough for this.
Like an extra who's upset. It's like, really underacted.
Now might be a good time to, since we're mentioning this, to also mention that the thing with Crawford, what was his name? Caulfield?
Yeah. Caulfield? Something like that.
Maybe I'm just thinking of Catcher in the Rye. No, Caldwell. That was his name.
The Catcher in the Doctor Who? The Doctor in the Rye.
But did you know what went on behind the scenes with him? Where his part was originally supposed to be...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Caldwell was originally supposed to be female, and they got some actress to play the part. But then someone, I guess, based on what I read, the person who made this decision was not part of the Doctor Who crew, but was just some official at the BBC.
Someone higher up than Bryant, because Bryant, the director, like we mentioned, was the one who originally cast
Caldwell
as a woman.
But yeah, I got the picture that this was someone from the BBC, maybe like the corporate side or something. Not corporate, but you know what I mean.
But they overruled it because they're like, that's gonna be a target for fetishism.
I thought they said it would create scenes that were overtly sexual, which I didn't get because I don't see how replacing him with a woman in any of his scenes would create anything sexual.
Yeah, I don't know, but she was already hired, so they paid her in full for the serial anyway. So good on them, I guess, for paying her still.
Hey, I would like to get full pay for not doing anything.
Turns out the BBC's not as forward-thinking as we thought in 71.
Well, I mean, I don't know. But, yeah, that happened. Kind of just a strange incidence.
Yeah. But anyway, so Winton sneaks around and puts a gun to Dent's head and is like, yo, drop your weapons or I kill Dent. So they all drop their weapons and they capture them. So that's the thing. Meanwhile, the Doctor's in the Monster's ship and Joe's like, come on, Doctor, let's go. And forgets about the trip meme and sets it off while she's leaving.
Yep. Thanks, Joe. The Master has... It looked like a pocket watch, but I guess it was just some sort of screen or a monitor that he uses to monitor the inside of his TARDIS, and he realizes that the wire's been set off, but he doesn't need to take any action because he's already set up systems within the TARDIS to lock, when the beam is tripped, to lock whoever's in there in and fill the room with deadly gas.
Yep. So,
thanks, Joe.
Well, not deadly. He doesn't use a deadly gas, he uses sleeping gas. Then later when he comes in, he's like, yeah, Doctor, I could have just used a deadly gas, but I didn't. Because I need you.
So I guess he can control which type of gas comes out?
Yeah,
potentially.
I guess. But anyway, he mentions that after the Doctor's little stunt by stealing his dematerialization circuit in Terror of the Autons, he installed an anti-theft mechanism, which was the tripwire.
Hey, the Doctor also has an anti-theft mechanism on Bessie.
It sticks people to his car.
Way less effective than the Master's anti-theft mechanism.
But Bessie's also thousands of, if not hundreds of thousands of years older.
Hey, well, it's all relative. I mean,
Bessie didn't show up in this serial.
Which makes sense because they're not on Earth.
Where does he keep Bessie?
Probably in some garage somewhere.
I was imagining him keeping it in the TARDIS and like driving it through the doors when he needs to get it out. Like driving down the stairs of the building. The TARDIS is in his lab. And the Brigadier just looking out his window like, what, Doctor, what?
Or just wagging his finger and going, oh, you. No, there needs to be more scenes with cars and potentially motorcycles driving down and up stairs. Specifically up. I'd like to see that. Very specific request on my part.
Yeah, what? Jeez.
Preferably out of exploding buildings.
Out of exploding buildings,
but up, yeah.
What?
Because once they get to the roof, they should like jump off. I don't know. Someone should write this in to something. I'm gonna be disappointed if this doesn't happen. No.
Now I'm imagining the Doctor just riding a motorcycle with his cape flowing in the wind, like Joe in a sidecar. Like, Doctor, what's going on? They leap off the building.
Yeah, see, wouldn't that be great?
And then they land in the TARDIS, and then it dematerializes. See, we've got half a serial already. We could write a serial.
Okay. Tangent aside, where were we?
The Master puts the Doctor and Joe in to these pod things
Right.
in this TARDIS.
He lets the Doctor out and tells him that the Doctor's gonna accompany him to the primitive city because he wants to go check that out. And if the Doctor pulls anything funny, he has a switch in his hand that he can use to fill the chamber Joe is in with a deadly gas.
Yeah.
So,
I just like to mention that I like how the monster just keeps filing cabinets in his TARDIS console room. Just wanted to throw that out there.
maybe he's more organized than the Doctor.
I think he is.
Yeah. If the second Doctor's anything to go by, looking for random stuff he's found over the years.
Like those bagpipes.
So yeah, they're about to leave the Master's TARDIS, and the Doctor drops his TARDIS key.
Well, the monster's key.
Yeah, the Doctor drops the Master's TARDIS key by the door.
Yeah.
Which comes in handy later.
So, back at base, the IMC guys have busted out. They've got their weapons back and... Well, okay, so the colonists took their weapons like, okay, you guys all need to leave now. But the IMC guys have snuck back in, taken their weapons, and now there's another firefight.
Yeah. In which the colonists lose. A few more people die. Colonists lose this time and are taken captive. And previously, when the colonists were in possession of the guns, Winton wanted to put them to use and
militarize the colony, like you said.
But Ash said, no, we're not going to do that. They're already captive. We don't need to use the guns. And once the colonists get captured, Winton's like, wouldn't it have been a good idea to use the guns, Ash?
Yeah, I don't think so, because everyone who was involved in that fight looked like they had a gun, so I don't think those extra guns would have mattered.
Maybe they could have dual-wielded. I mean, their aim was so poor anyway. Yeah, I don't think we mentioned, but in both this and the last firefight, both sides had stormtrooper-level aim. They were just missing almost every shot, and they were pretty close to each other.
Neither of them are military. They never had formal gun training.
I mean, it's not that hard, though. I mean, I've never really used a gun, but I assume I could shoot something 10 feet away.
Well, I mean, the knockback. It's hard to account for the knockback when you've never shot a gun before.
Okay, I mean, I don't know.
The recoil.
Yeah, maybe I'm overestimating my ability. But yeah, either
That's why we should all use crossbows. Just go back hundreds
guns
of
are
years.
out, guys. Crossbows are the new guns.
Let's just go back even further. Longbows.
Or slingshots or whatever.
The atlatl.
What's that?
It's just a long stick with a holder on the end that you put the arrow in. You like do like a throwing motion holding the stick, and it flings the arrow.
Huh.
It's used in like ancient American civilizations.
Huh. Is that with the Clovis point or whatever that's called? Yeah, whatever.
Probably.
We should just go back to no weapons, just hand-to-hand combat. No,
Make boxing a thing again.
Anyway, the Doctor and Master they go to the underground city, and they're once again, quote unquote, escorted in by the primitives.
Oh no! You forgot the scene where the IMC guys are busting into the monster's TARDIS because they're like the adjudicator's fake, because they find out the monster's not the adjudicator by looking up who was supposed to be the adjudicator.
I thought it was that the real adjudicator wanted like clearance to land or something, and they're like, wait a minute. I don't know. It's not that important.
Something like that. But anyway, they find the key that the Doctor dropped, and they bust in. The monster's like, somebody's trying to rescue Joe. Looks like I'm gonna have to kill her. And he dramatically, slowly is about to push the button, and the Doctor's like, yeah! And he kicks it out of the monster's hand. It's like, whoa!
Yeah, this is into episode 6. The cliffhanger for 5 was the Master pushing the button.
Yeah, but the Doctor does
This is a stupid cliffhanger.
The Doctor kicks it out of the monster's hand. The monster's like, what? And I was like, yeah! Then the primitives show up and escort them in, like you said, so...
So yeah, Joe is freed. And the master takes a look at the fresco mural relief thing, and he interprets it. He knows what it is. And it's kind of funny. So yeah, he mentions that originally the primitives had greater technology, and then over the years, basically what the Doctor deduced before. And he also mentions that a relic that they still keep from their technologically advanced past is this doomsday machine that can be used to, well, they don't explain what it can be used for yet, but it's a deadly machine. And the Doctor's like, you got that all from this mural? And the Master's like, well, no, I actually got it from Time Lord records.
Yeah, I stole the file.
So, yeah, they, I guess, go have another audience with...
No, they bust out. The monster drops a smoke bomb. He's like, you better cover your nose,
right.
Doctor. And then they bust out, and the monster has a map of the underground city, and they find the main control room again. And then this is where the monster explains that the weapon is actually able to be used to cause supernovas. And he shows the Doctor Earth's sun. He's like, see, this is going to go supernova in like 100,000 million years, but I can make it go supernova now with this weapon. The Doctor's like, that's impossible. He's like, but it's not. You know, the Crab Nebula, that was because they tested this weapon.
And yeah, of course, the Master's entire plan, his entire purpose for coming to this planet and posing as an adjudicator was so he could use the weapon to control the universe.
Yeah, and this is a big character defining conversation for the Doctor, I feel. But they have this conversation where the Master offers the Doctor a half stake in the universe if he goes in with the Master. He buys into the whole super weapon plot thing, and he says no, and the Master's like, but why? You could have all the power in the universe. And the Doctor says something important, just like, I'd rather see the universe than rule it.
Yeah, and then there was another quote from the Master that I also liked, in addition to, you know, the Doctor's line, where the Master tells him that he's missing the point, and he says, the point is that one must rule or serve. That's a basic law of life. I don't know, I kind of like that.
Yeah. Unless you're the Doctor, then you just don't serve, and you just nope out of situations when you're done. Peace!
Which he does for the first time in a while here, at the end of this serial.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't had an opportunity to do it because he's been trapped there.
Yeah, you know, of course, but...
Which I guess is what the line, I see the universe rather than rule it, is also referencing, because he's still trapped on Earth, I guess, at the end of this serial, and, you know, he wants to see the universe. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not really a spoiler, since we already revealed that the Time Lords were the one who sent the Doctor to deal with the Master.
Yeah.
But anyway, the baby brain thing pops out and is like, sup, guys? Why are you back? Because he said to the Doctor and Joe before that if he came back, they would kill them. Meanwhile, Joe and Caldwell have gone looking for the Doctor.
Yeah,
and they show up. They show up
at the city.
And the Doctor.
There's also the entire subplot where IMC commands the colonists to leave. They're like, well, the law hasn't really solved our issue, so we're going to kill you all if you don't leave, so go. I think that's the card they pull.
And Caldwell investigates the engines, like, nope, your engines are all fine. And then he immediately goes to Dent, it's like, your engines aren't fine, they'll probably blow up on the ground.
But Dent wants them gone anyway. I mean, you know,
Dent's just okay with committing mass murder, basically.
Well, he just wants them gone. He doesn't really care if they're dead or alive. So yeah, Ash appears on video screen to Dent to notify him that the rocket's about to take off. In however many minutes or hours or whatever. But then Joe and Caldwell show up at the city, like we mentioned. And things are going haywire in the city.
Okay, the Doctor and the Master are having this argument with the baby thing about what the Master wants to do with the weapon. And the Doctor, I guess, using his amazing oration skills, convinces the thing again that the Master is evil. And he's like, there's a self-destruct feature. I guess just at this point making a decision for his entire race to die. He tells the Doctor to flip the self-destruct switch, which is going to destroy the entire city and all the primitives inside. So the Doctor's like, thank you.
It's another letter on the death count right there.
Also probably being attributed to the Doctor since he was the one who killed them all.
So yeah, they need to make their escape from the city. The Doctor, I don't...
Oh, we should also mention at this point it's revealed that the reason the primitives have devolved is because the radiation from the test firing of the weapon has poisoned the food supply and the primitives. So that's also why the crops aren't growing, is because the radiation that's being used to power the Doomsday weapon is poisoning the crops.
Right. So, and as they're escaping, I don't know, the Doctor says something in passing. I don't know if this was supposed to be directed at... I don't know who was supposed to be directed at. And based on the scene itself, I would assume that it was to the primitives who were, running towards the explosion center. Mm-hmm. But based on the dialogue, that doesn't exactly make sense, because the Doctor says, "Where are you going?" Or like, "Why are you all running to your deaths?" or something like that.
Yeah, he says like, "Don't go that way. You're all gonna die."
Hadn't they already resolved to all die? I guess he wanted to save them, but
no, just the brain alien thing was like, yeah,
oh,
we're all gonna die. I don't really think the primitives knew that.
Well, that sucks.
Yeah, I think the Doctor, that was his attempt to save them. They just didn't understand him because they don't speak and they kind of they're telepathic. And at that point, the Doctor was like, "Well, I mean, can't save them. May as well save myself, right?"
I guess. That's weird. Yeah. Anyway, they meet back up with Joe and
Caldwell.
Yeah, and they make their escape.
The monster's about to be like, "Nope," and then Caldwell pulls a gun on him because the Doctor wants the map, and the monster's like, "Fend for yourselves." And yeah, Caldwell pulls his gun.
So they make it out alive, and the whole place blows up. But yeah, meanwhile, outside the city, there's another firefight going on between IMC and the colonists.
Oh, we didn't mention the spaceship taking off and blowing up.
Isn't that about to happen?
No, that happens before the colonists show up because you're like, wait, what? The colonists?
Oh, yeah.
Because the spaceship takes off and then it blows up and you're like, whoa, the serial just got really dark.
Yeah, and Caldwell mentions like, yep, knew that was going to happen. So all the colonists you think are dead, but then they show up, they crest this cliff, and show up as IMC are about to do dastardly things to the Doctor and Joe and
the fake adjudicator.
And Caldwell and Master. Yeah.
Well, they don't kill Caldwell because like, if we didn't need you, you'd be dead right now.
Yeah.
Because he's the mining expert. The only mining expert in the whole corporation's posse that they brought to this planet. I feel like there's an oversight there somewhere.
Anyway, another firefight starts. So, okay, we have the original firefight, the first firefight in the colony, the second one where IMC takes over, and now here. So there's a triple play of firefights in this serial. And
between the same two groups of people.
And
more people die, obviously.
Yeah. But the colonists come out on top.
And they kick IMC off the planet, and the monster makes a sneaky escape when the Doctor and Joe aren't looking, and then they see that the monster's TARDIS disappear, and they're like, oh, well, we'll see him again eventually.
Yeah, undoubtedly.
Next week. But anyway.
Yeah, did you notice that the Master's TARDIS made a different sound than the Doctor's?
It sounded the same to me.
To me, it sounded different, and I kind of thought, once again, I was kind of half asleep during episode 6. So maybe it's just my imagination, but I kind of thought they played the Doctor's dematerialization sound backwards, or at least reversed the. How do I put this?
Segments.
Yeah.
Maybe the monster's TARDIS is a newer model than the Doctor's, as he mentioned again for the second time in the serial. So he also mentioned it during Terror of the Autons.
So
But yes.
How do they get rid of IMC? They don't kill everyone.
No, they just kick him off. Like, get out.
I guess.
Well, they call
anticlimactic.
for a new adjudicator right at
Right.
the end.
Okay.
But Caldwell wants to join the colonists because he's like, yeah, I don't have any place at IMC anymore since they're probably gonna kick me out for siding with you guys. So,
Yeah.
and Winton's like, sure. And Joe's like, wait, how'd the spaceship take off? And then it's revealed that Ash sacrificed himself for the colonists.
Yep.
But then they bring the TARDIS back. They're like, yeah, we found it in a house, like out in the prairie where the primitives have been keeping a lot of stolen stuff. And the Doc's like, cool, thanks. And then they leave.
Yeah, and I don't know. I didn't realize that I missed this sort of I don't know what to call it, trope segment we get at the end of every serial. It's not a trope in the sense that it appears in, it's not a trope in the traditional sense. It's like a Doctor Who specific trope where, like, the serial specific characters are discussing something and the Doctor and companions go away and they see the TARDIS dematerialize and they're like, well, I'll be.
Well, they didn't say anything. They just looked at each
Yeah.
other like, huh. Then just like, we'll never speak of this again.
I kind of missed that sort of scene we get at the end of a lot of serials.
Yeah. But
I'm
anyway,
gonna be glad when the Doctor's not exiled anymore.
yeah,
So it's gonna get a lot better, probably.
maybe. But anyway, the Doctor shows up again with the brig, and the brig is still standing. Like, come back, Doctor. And he shows up, and it's like, wow, wasn't a very long trip, was it, Doctor? Well, you were right. It wasn't the monster in that report. So yeah. And Joe's like, wait, but we were gone for like. The Doc's like, don't try explain it, Joe. He won't understand.
Yeah, it turns out they'd only been gone for, I guess, a second or two to the
Yeah.
brig.
And then
Yeah,
it ends.
that's how it ends. It ends on, again, such a lighthearted note, which it didn't feel too out of place this time since they set it up way at the
Yeah.
beginning, at least. But yeah, interesting serial. I wouldn't call it good, but definitely interesting. And definitely a refreshing serial in the midst of the formula we're currently in.
Currently locked into.
Yeah, but at the same time, I'm surprised I didn't enjoy it more because it would make I would assume that, or I had assumed that, when the Doctor finally goes to another planet, I'm really gonna enjoy it. And I had said to myself, even if the serial's a little subpar, I'm probably gonna really enjoy it. But no, not really. This serial felt disjointed. It felt like the story with the conflict between the colonists and IMC, and the plot line about the primitives and the doomsday weapon in the city weren't meshed together well, in my opinion. They felt like they were
Yeah.
two separate things that they kind of just threw together
Yeah.
and didn't exactly. They tie it in with the radiation and the crops and all that, but at the same time, I felt like the primitives could have been a really cool alien species if they'd fleshed them out more and given them their own serial that dealt with the Master trying to use the Doomsday weapon.
Yeah.
And at the same time, the conflict between the colonists and IMC could have been its own serial, possibly reduced in length.
Yeah, it was weird because there was like three parties involved, which usually when there's a serial, there's two parties involved. There's the good guys and the bad guys, so to speak. The side that the Doctor joins and the side that the Doctor doesn't join. But in this serial, there was three sides because there was, or even four if you include the Master, because there was IMC, the colonists, the primitives, and then the Master.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like we said, it was written by Malcolm Hulke. So once again, those gray area type serials where you don't really know who's in the right and who's in the wrong. And yeah,
And the Doctor works with the Master again, so, we get to see that again. It's happened several a time now.
although this is probably his first serial where he's actually basically succeeded, and it was his biggest plot. It was yeah. I mean, the previous plots were like, I'm going to destroy Earth because I hate the Doctor and how he likes Earth, and this one was like, I'm going to rule the galaxy. I mean, it was his biggest plot for sure.
The Doctor definitely foiled the Master fully in this serial, whereas in previous serials there was always like that that scene at the end where you get the master gets the upper hand, or it's revealed that he's gonna come back or something. Which, if he hadn't escaped the time loop in God, what was it? The Claws of Axos. That would have been the Doctor's biggest victory. But yeah, he's yeah. But no, this is definitely the first time where it's not like, oh, the Master has the upper hand at the end, which is interesting. I mean, it's always interesting when you do find out, oh, the villain escaped at the end. But we've seen that quite a few times now. So
there's a clear distinction between there's a clear distinction between the Master being just some guy and him being like an antagonist to the Doctor in the serial.
What do you mean by that?
But like in the previous serials, we were talking about how the Master was just kind of, he wasn't really evil in the sense that he was always trying to do evil things. He was just trying to do his thing, and then the Doctor was like, nope.
He just wanted to go against the Doctor, basically.
And this is the first time he's been like legitimately evil.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. Because I guess in the previous serials, you might get the impression that, hey, if the Doctor was trying to do evil deeds, maybe the Master would try to oppose him and do what the Doctor, maybe the roles could have been reversed. Mm-hmm. But here, no, you don't really get that.
Yeah. But overall, just kind of a bland serial, I think is how I would describe it. It was good in concept. It was just kind of drawn out and bland.
Yeah, a lot of political shenanigans between the colonists and IMC, and apparently the lower budget. The costumes definitely weren't as good.
Right.
We did mention the Master's cloak, which was interesting and kind of cool, but in retrospect, it's kind of plain. Just a plain black cloak. I guess fits with the world, but.
And his plain black outfit that I guess is just his default outfit now, since he was also wearing it in the Claws of Axos. And
yeah. And again, the trend where Joe doesn't exactly do much, like I said before, hoping that it doesn't run even further than it already has.
We'll see you next week. But anyway, wrapping that up, no emails this week. Email us at thedoctor@decorativevegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, fan fiction, where the Doctor rides a motorcycle off a building. Check us out on YouTube at Trust Your Doctor. Check us out on iTunes at Trust Your Doctor and leave a rating if you liked it. And don't forget to check out the website for whatever you need relating to the show, basically.
Yeah, check out Facebook. Like us on Facebook. And yeah, that wraps up this week. So next week we're watching The Demons. But until then, the end.